Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known. Carl Sagan. That really captures the spirit, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And it's perfect for what we're diving into today.
Right, because you, our listener, sent us this fascinating document from NASA, their vision for space exploration from back in 2004.
Yeah, looking at this now, almost, 2 decades later, it's really illuminating.
Especially considering the context.
Exactly. This came out not long after the Columbia tragedy. So it wasn't just a plan. It felt like a response.
And a statement about where human spaceflight should go after such a loss. A need for a clear direction.
Precisely. And it wasn't just theoretical talk either.
No, they released it alongside the budget request for fiscal year 2005.
Showing they were serious.
Yeah.
Trying to make it sustainable, affordable.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Get to the heart of this 2004 vision. What were they aiming for? And maybe more importantly, why?
Let's start right there with the why.
Okay. What drove this big push?
Well, it wasn't just about, adventure for adventure's sake. The document makes it pretty clear.
It ties into bigger questions.
Yeah, really fundamental ones. Where do we come from? Are we alone? Where are we headed? Those deep, almost philosophical drivers.
But it wasn't just philosophical, was it? There were concrete scientific reasons, too, right around that time.
Oh, absolutely. Things were happening fast then. We were finding more and more planets around other stars.
Exoplanets, yeah. The possibility of other Earths.
Exactly. And closer to home, evidence was building up, potential resources on the moon, and those exciting signs of water on Mars, even Jupiter's moons.
Wow. So real scientific discoveries fueling the ambition.
Definitely. It really expanded the sense of what might be possible, what might be out there. You see that link? The discoveries feeding the plan?
It's that classic mix, isn't it? Human curiosity meets actual opportunity.
Right. And the document also mentions the human experience itself.
How seeing space, being in space, changes things, inspires people.
Exactly that. While, of course, acknowledging the huge risks, Challenger and Columbia were very much present in their thinking.
But they still saw the unique value humans bring. Adaptability, problem solving.
Things robots can't quite replicate, yeah. It was seen as complementary. Humans and robots working together.
Okay, so those are the motivations. What was the big picture goal, the main objective?
Fundamentally, it was stated as advancing U.S. scientific, security, and economic interests. That was the core.
Interesting how explicitly they tied exploration to those national priorities.
Yes, it wasn't framed just as pure science, but as a strategic investment.
So how did they break that down? What were the key objectives underpinning that big goal?
There were several main pillars. First, a sustained and affordable program. Human and robotic together. Long-term thinking.
Not just a sprint.
No. Second, extending human presence through the solar system, starting with the moon.
By 2020, was it?
Yes, return by 2020, as a stepping stone towards Metas eventually.
Okay, what else?
Third, really pushing the development of new technologies, new infrastructure. The tools needed to actually do it.
Makes sense.
And finally, actively seeking international and commercial partners, recognizing they couldn't or shouldn't do it all alone.
That sounds like a very comprehensive strategy, balancing the big dreams with the practical side.
It really tried to be.
Let's get into some details then. What about near-term stuff? Low Earth orbit.
Right, LEO. The immediate priority was the space shuttle.
Getting it flying again safely after Columbia.
Exactly. Incorporating the lessons learned and using it mainly to finish assembling the International Space Station, the ISS.
And once the ISS was done?
The plan was to retire the shuttle fleet probably around the end of that decade, 2010-ish.
And the ISS itself, its role would change.
Yeah, the focus for research on the ISS was meant to shift.
Yeah.
To really support those deeper space exploration goals.
Like astronaut health, long-duration effects.
Precisely. Developing countermeasures. Using it as a lab to figure out how to keep people healthy on those long trips.
So the ISS becomes a crucial test bed for going further out.
Exactly. An indispensable one, really.
Okay, so moving beyond LEO, the moon looms large in this plan, doesn't it?
Hugely important, but explicitly as a stepping stone, like we said.
Not the final goal.
No, it was a place to learn, to build capability, before tackling Mars and other destinations.
How would they start? Robots first.
Yes, robotic missions first, planned to start no later than 2008. To map things out, look for resources, check potential landing sites.
Paving the way.
Paving the way, exactly. Very deliberate sequence.
And then humans. That timeline was pretty aggressive.
It was. First extended human trip back to the surface, aiming for as early as 2015, but definitely by 2020.
Wow. Yeah, looking back now, that really highlights the urgency they felt.
It does.
So what were the main things they wanted to achieve by going back to the moon with people?
It was about testing. Testing the key technologies you'd need for Mars, but in a, well, slightly more forgiving environment.
Closer to home.
Right. Things like using local resources, in situ resource utilization, ISRU, developing reliable power systems for the surface, learning about long-term habitats, how to move around effectively.
Building up the experience, the confidence.
Exactly. Practice makes perfect, essentially, before the really big leap.
Makes a lot of sense strategically. So Mars, the ultimate goal for many people. What did the 2004 plans say about that?
It was definitely on the horizon, but the approach was methodical. Continued robotic exploration was key.
More rovers, orbiters.
Yes, searching for signs of life, past or present, getting the detailed info needed before sending humans. They specifically mentioned Spirit and Opportunity.
Which had just landed then, right? January 2004.
That's right, just starting their missions. And the plan also included robotic probes to other places, like Jupiter's moons, asteroids.
Also looking for life, resources.
Both. And Project Prometheus was mentioned, the nuclear power and propulsion initiative. That was seen as enabling really ambitious missions, like the Jupiter Icy Moons Orbiter.
So a broad robotic campaign first.
A very broad campaign. And they were even looking beyond our solar system, too.
Finding Earth-like planets.
That was the goal. They mentioned Spitzer, James Webb, which was still way off Nacken, then Kepler, the terrestrial planet finder concept. All part of that long-term vision.
Amazing foresight.
And alongside all of that, developing the core capabilities for humans. Better power, better propulsion, life support, the really hard stuff for long journeys.
So human Mars missions were the culmination, but only after the robots and the moon work proved successful.
That was the sequence, yes. Very phased.
What about getting there? The rockets?
Yeah.
The spacecraft?
They knew the shuttle wasn't the answer for deep space. The plan called for a brand new vehicle.
The Crew Exploration Vehicle, CV.
That's the one. Initial test flight before 2010, operational by 2014 was the goal.
Ambitious again.
Very. And a key decision was separating crew and cargo transport. Different vehicles for different jobs.
For ISS and beyond.
Yes. And they planned to buy commercial cargo services for the ISS.
Which did happen, eventually.
It did. And also anticipated needing commercial crew transport to ISS after the shuttle retired. A big nod towards the private sector.
And international partners were definitely part of the picture, too.
Explicitly. They wanted to actively seek partnerships for transportation and other services. Collaboration was built into the vision.
So this required NASA itself to change, right, internally?
Oh, definitely. A big reorganization was part of it. They created the Exploration Systems Enterprise.
Focused just on developing these new vehicles and technologies.
Correct. And they recognized the need for a much closer coordination between the human spaceflight side and the robotic science side.
Breaking down silos.
Trying to, yes. Even biological research was set to focus more on bioastronautics supporting human health in space.
And there was an Office of the Space Architect.
Yeah, sort of coordinated the whole grand plan, integrating all the pieces, plus that increased reliance on private companies we mentioned.
Okay, the big question, funding. How are they planning to pay for all this?
They proposed budget increases, about 5% a year for the first 3 years, then slowing to about 1%.
But that doesn't sound like that much for such a huge vision. Where else did the money come from?
Good point. They plan to find savings elsewhere. Controlling growth in other programs, the big one being the savings from retiring the space shuttle.
Ah, okay. Redirecting those funds.
Exactly. And also hoping for cost-reducing innovations in the new tech development.
Beyond the science and strategy, what were the wider benefits they talked about for the country?
Several things. Technological spin-offs, boosting the economy, enhancing security through advanced tech.
The usual arguments for space investment?
Right. But also a big emphasis on inspiration. Getting young people excited about science, technology, engineering, math, STEM fields.
Building the future workforce.
Yes. And it was also seen as, a symbol, American spirit, leadership, and a way to foster international cooperation.
So looking back at it all, this whole 2004 vision, what are the main takeaways for you?
I think the biggest thing is just how strategic and interconnected it was. It wasn't just, let's go back to the moon. The moon was a specific, necessary step within a much larger decades-long plan aimed ultimately at Mars and understanding our solar system better.
Driven by that mix of science, curiosity, and, well, the human impulse to explore.
Absolutely. And the level of detail, the clear rationale laid out back then, it's still pretty impressive to read.
It really is. And it makes you think, doesn't it? Here we are, all these years later. How much of this 2004 vision actually shaped what we're doing now in space?
That's the question.
What parts came true? Maybe not on the exact timeline, but the ideas.
Yeah.
And what's different now? What new challenges or new frontiers have popped up that they didn't foresee back in 2004?
Yeah, things have definitely evolved.
It just shows you, I think, that space exploration is this long game, a marathon, like you said earlier, not a sprint, and even the boldest plans adapt over time. It's a fascinating journey to watch.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, thanks for digging into this with us today, a really interesting look back.